Hi, it's Steve and Joe from Freshagenda. And Steve, we're here with the third go.
Yeah, this will be good in the bloopers reel.
Yeah, to have a bit of a chat about some of the big things that are happening in the world. It seems like a long time. 2 weeks is a long time in world events these days. So we're going to have a look at some of the big things that are happening around the world. Of course, dissect this week's positive GDT and chart of the week. We've got some big things happening in the world. Not just in the world of dairy, that we thought we'd have a chat about. So
why don't you take us through them?
Yeah, well, the big picture things, we've had escalating tensions in the east of the EU. We've just heard in the last few hours that there's been some missiles that have landed in Poland, although it looks like perhaps that's not as investigations are ongoing, so it might not be as dire as we initially thought.
So by the time this comes out, it won't be such a huge splash.
It won't even be a thing. And then the US dollar sliding, just based on what the Fed's doing compared to other central banks. So obviously that's going to have an impact on affordability. China starting its tentative first steps of reopening and moving away from its COVID zero policy, which, you know, in the context of the other thing we might have put on there is the G20's meeting. Our Prime Minister has met with President Xi, the first meeting between Xi and our Prime Minister for 6 years. So that's really in the news. And obviously Biden's meeting with Xi too.
So I think the reopening thing is a couple of, it's not just the COVID thing, but they've actually come to the table and starting to talk about thawing, you know, the relations. Yeah. I think there's a few that, you know, it's almost like there's a lot of political theatre around the election in China. And now that that's done, we've got to get on with business. And so opening up, being more pragmatic. I think there's a number of things in there. And so the reopening is about going back into the fold.
Yeah, that's right. But it certainly makes Russia seem even more isolated. So, and then in the who knows column over there, we've got this meltdown of tech companies. So Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter has been definitely entertaining, but who knows where that leads. But and then Zuckerberg at Meta, the metaverse isn't quite what he thought it would be cracked up to be. So we're seeing lots of job losses, a tech bubble. I mean, what it means more broadly than that, who knows?
Well, it has a connotation for equity markets at times when they're already in a lot of trouble. But this is an interesting little development to watch.
It is. And then US midterms, depending on your perspective, were much better or much worse than you might have expected. But certainly a very evenly split House. Counting's ongoing. The Democrats increased their majority in the Senate. So what does that mean in terms of stability for the US economy and
policy
and what comes down the pike? And of course, as we speak, Trump is also speaking and likely to announce his
we got him muted
next run. We've got him muted, which is great. Is the best thing to do. And then on dairy, it's sort of not such the big events of the last 2 weeks, but more of the same. So EU milk improving, Steve. More rain continuing.
Rain
part of the world.
So not offsetting each other, but similar. I think the EU milk thing is one to watch a lot because it'll be better in the short term, and then we've reached some trouble, like we've talked about a few times, some trouble territory when you get past the first quarter.
Sure.
And maybe even in the first quarter with fertilizer, which is not going to get any easier.
And it's very wet in Australia. Not that we matter so much in the global context, but that rain is heading over to the North Island. So that's going to continue to make it really tough for milk production in this part of the world. On the demand side, we've just had some news that the USDA will be buying product again, dairy product.
There's always a lot of interest in the US market on that because it brings in another buyer to perhaps replace some of the burnt off demand due to difficult household budgets. We'll see. And that old milk slide, I think we've covered the Chinese thing, and there will be a slight recovery, probably not in the news, but at least it's going ahead. Yeah,
that's right. I mean, I was trying to draw a tenuous line when we were talking earlier, Steve, between the tech bubble and the alt milk bubble. That, in particular, Oatly continues to really struggle. They've attracted a lot of capital with their IPO, but manufacturing issues and perhaps some demand issues as people's incomes come under pressure.
Definitely.
Their taste for oat milk that's a bit more expensive may be waning.
Yeah, well, the retail anecdata we've heard here is that those parts of the category are under a lot of pressure.
Sure.
Because they're more expensive and people don't come afford it.
Mm.
So they pull back, trading down, you get
Yeah.
back to more conventional diets.
That's right. Yeah. So on to the GDT in this context.
Yeah, which was a positive event, as you said, across the board. A lot of people didn't find this very exciting. So I think it's something to dig into the weeds on a bit. Won't do that too much in the interest of the length of this video. But the powders certainly found a bit more demand against the background with, look, I think the feeling coming into this was that skim milk powder had bottomed. Signs that the European market, despite some more headwinds with milk supply still coming, perhaps, and that means more product availability, but, the signals that might have bottomed. Certainly the US has come up a bit recently as well. So that's probably for me, that was the biggest takeaway from this, the direction of skim milk powder. Whole milk is still a lottery between China coming back or not. But then you look across, butter was mixed, and cheddar just drifted a bit. The US market still in the processing part of the cheese category is still a little weaker. So yeah, that was interesting. We predicted a kind of a ski jump effect from this last time because we saw the nice slope down the run there, but they hit a wall because the price went up.
That's right. Yeah.
Was a little less
it's taking flight, maybe.
Yeah.
Not crashing.
Yeah, it was only a $90 increase, so let's not get carried away. But
no.
So the demand side was of this event was all important. We saw a little better demand, obviously, in whole milk powder, but when you look at both powders, they're both above the gain line. In my double line there of when you look at the regression on these or the best fit of this plot, they're both above the gain line. It wasn't just about the starting demand. When you look at skim milk powder, it was really interesting because it started strong and held up.
Yeah.
Compare that to previous events, which have all been sad. Whole milk looked very similar. A little stronger than what we've seen, and it stayed up longer, and the price was better.
That's right.
As a result, when you then look at where the bidding came from, it didn't come from China coming back whole milk powder. So no, they're not back yet. So that continued to slide a bit, though skim milk powder was, I think, more positive. You had still got elevated buying into the Chinese market. And when you then look into Southeast Asia, that went up this time. So, have we seen the bottom? Are we going to see more buyers come back? Is this the time to cover at a reasonable value? We want to be looking across the world to see what are the pressure points on this. With Europe like to have more product, New Zealand certainly pushing out more product.
Yep.
So that'll be an interesting little game for the next couple of months.
Sure.
See where that goes. So the Middle East came back as well, with both China and Southeast Asia step back in terms of percentage and volume, and create a bit more room for these guys and girls who came in and bought some more. So they're up well and truly on the prior year. Some interesting relativities.
So AMF back above the line after quite a while.
Yeah, after
since
last November.
Yeah.
So a year it's been under that. Being called a discount. Now we see it back above. So let's see whether that stays there. And over to New Zealand and what this means for milk value. So out of this event, the spot value of this event at today's exchange rate was only $8.46, which is well and truly under where the futures are. Futures are pretty close to $9 in New Zealand money for the season. The season average exchange rate to date, and that's about where the rate is now, averaging about $9.25, which is bang on where the price forecast is.
Yes.
So it's in pretty interesting position.
Yeah.
Likely to improve, though, have to think from here. But every cent and the exchange rate takes off 20 cents a kilo.
Yeah, so that'll be an important factor to watch, won't it?
It will. Okay, back to the US.
Shout of the week is back in the US. That's right, Steve. So the commercial disappearance numbers for September have come out, and they're pretty interesting, particularly the very different trends we're seeing in the different cheese groups in terms of commercial disappearance. So we've got American cheese pretty much flatlining there, so the cheddar and the like. But in the other cheese varieties, including mozzarella, pretty strong growth there, really, Steve.
So it's this trading down theory.
Yes.
Got, right, where less at retail, and certainly in some parts of food service where cheddar is part of the sit-down meal or smorgasbord or whatever. So that's swinging across.
To more pizzas, burgers, more processed cheese in that other category, but fairly strong growth, and it's given the CME a bit of a lift there on the
it's not a huge lift, but it is certainly in the last couple of weeks it's noticeably moved up. So what's also going on here is there's reduced output of cheddar.
Sure.
So the market's being managed in a stable way. So that's probably good for those looking at class 3 futures and seeing where they're going. So that's also come up, not in this chart, but out of the gallery we looked at before, that's one that tells a similar story. Okay. That's it for us.
4 times a charm.
Yeah. Watch the bloopers reel. It's coming out soon. We'll be back soon. Hope you can join us. Bye for now.